If you guys have a 5th generation 4Runner and you want to upgrade the headlights, this video is for you. We've bought thousands of dollars worth of aftermarket headlights and we're going to put them up against one another. We're going to test the brightness, we're going to look at the functionality of all of the headlights, and of course we're going to talk about price. In this video, we purchased 2 headlights from Alpharex, the Nova Series MK2 and the MK2 Luxx series. We're also going to compare a headlight from Attica. We've got the GTR Lighting headlight, the 1st generation Morimoto XB headlight, and the all-new XB Evo and Evo hybrid headlights from Morimoto. We're going to compare those to the stock halogen and the stock LED lights. The first thing I think of when it comes to upgrading your 4Runner headlights is the looks. That's probably the main reason all of you are watching this. Which one looks the best? Which one's going to make my 4Runner stand out? So let's first talk about the features and functions, and then you guys can decide which one looks the best, and then just keep that in the back of your mind for the rest of this shootout. The first headlight I got installed was the GTR Lighting headlight. I actually really like the definition of all 3 of these projectors. I think it looks really cool inside this all blacked out housing. It's got a white daytime running light and it's got a sequential turn signal that everybody has grown to love. This is what the Attica or Attica headlight looks like, but I do want to get a little bit real for a second. When you turn this headlight back off, that glow bar, in my opinion, looks like an orange diaper. It covers pretty much the entire headlight. As you can see, this one has a startup sequence. Everybody wants a startup sequence in a headlight. I see 4 LED projectors on here, and it's got a daytime running light. It's also got a sequential turn signal. I then installed the Alpharex Alpha Black, the MK2 Luxx series headlight, and this is what it looks like. I love the startup sequence on this headlight housing. It's got 2 LED projectors and a sequential turn signal. I also noticed this really rinky-dink incandescent turn signal that also went on with the turn signal. They do have a selectable daytime running light though, so you could choose between amber and white. This is what the Alpharex Black MK2 Nova Series headlight looks like, and in my opinion, it looks pretty cool. You do got this startup sequence. Again, if it doesn't have a startup sequence, are you even cool? Does it look good? No. It's got 4 LED projectors. They call it ice cube projectors, and the middle 2 look to be bi-LED, which means they do both low beam and high beam. Yes, this does have a sequential turn signal with a selectable daytime running light where you can choose between an amber or a white. All of the 4Runner owners that I know that actually take their 4Runner overlanding or off-road, they generally favor the amber daytime running light versus the white, but if you get to choose between either one, I think that's pretty cool. You've seen us cover this headlight before on our channel. This is the Morimoto XB Generation 1 headlight. They do have that startup sequence where the LED projectors chase themselves. They have 3 LED projectors, and this headlight allows you to choose between a sequential turn signal or a standard turn signal. Switching between them is just a simple plug on the back side of the headlight. We then installed the Morimoto XB Evo hybrid headlight, and it looks like this. They use 2 LED projectors. That center projector is just a dummy projector because this is their hybrid version. You do got this startup sequence, does have that white daytime running light. You can't switch between white and amber with this set. However, it still looks really bright. When you hit the turn signal, it's got that fade off effect, not the sequential version. And lastly, when you install the Morimoto XB Evo headlight, it looks like this. It utilizes 3 LED projectors. The middle projector is no longer a dummy projector, but it's a all-new D-series projector. It does have a startup sequence that looks just like this. On these headlights, they're pretty customizable. You can change the color from amber to white on the daytime running light, and you can also change how the turn signal functions. You can have it a sequential turn signal or a standard fade-off effect turn signal like you see here. A unique feature of this headlight versus all of the other ones we just seen is that they have this heating element which essentially kicks on when it's 5 degrees Celsius or lower, so you're not going to have frost. If you're driving around up north in the winter and you're worried about your headlights not getting hot enough because they are an LED headlight, this is a very good feature. Now on to my favorite part of the video, the price. How much do any of these headlights even cost? The thing is, this number is always subject to change depending on where you purchase it from, the time you purchase it. Things are going to change. So at the time of this video, when I purchased every one of these headlights, this is how much they cost. The GTR Lighting headlights came in at around $800 at the time of this video. The Attica or Attica headlights came in at $1,299 at the time of this video. The Alpharex MKII Luxx series headlight was around $945, and the MKII Nova series from Alpharex was $1,475. The original Morimoto XB Generation 1 headlight with the white daytime running light was around $1,325, and with the amber daytime running light, it was $1,500. The price of the all-new Morimoto XB Evo Hybrid headlight comes in at around $1,200, and the Morimoto XB Evo headlight was $1,500 at the time of this video. Now for the nerdy part, we gotta go over the light output of the 4Runner headlights. This is gonna be tested in a completely different way. Normally we would take a digital Luxx meter, measure the actual usable brightness at a certain point, that point being the brightest point on the wall. It's not the case anymore. This is a 4Runner. We want to go above and beyond for this video. We're going to go 8 steps above and beyond because we got 8 different points on the wall. We're going to take all of those points and measure the candela and put it into this really complicated equation. And it's going to spit out a number, 1 through 10. This is a really good way to take the entire headlight into account, low beam, high beam, width, foreground, bust out a number to compare one of these headlights to another. This is what you're gonna see at Headlight Revolution from here on out. On low beam, the distance score was a 1.1. So not super intense, but remember, this is a halogen bulb. It's got that dingy yellow looking color, and it's definitely in need of upgrading. On high beam, it scored a 5.5. So on high beam, it is actually truly intense. Remember, the best score you can get is a 10 here, so a 5.5 is not that bad, but obviously you're watching this video because you're gonna upgrade your headlights. The width score is really what hurt this headlight at a 2.4. So an overall rating of this entire headlight was a 3.1. Take this as the benchmark for the rest of these headlights. Now this is what the OEM LED version of the stock headlights look like. As you can see, you got that bright white color. It's no longer a halogen bulb, it's an LED housing, and you can't just upgrade that LED. On low beam, I measured 6.4, so it's much brighter on low beam than your stock halogen. Looking ahead, that's actually a very good score. On high beam, it measured 5.7. So I guess if you are upgrading your stock headlights, if you can just get close to these numbers, you're doing pretty good because it is pretty bright. The width was at a 5.2. So an overall score on this OEM LED headlight of a 6.0. That's actually not too terrible. Remember, this overall score is taking low beam, the width, the foreground, the low road center coverage, and so much more, and packing it into a solid number so that way we can compare. Now we've got the GTR Lighting headlight installed, and the beam pattern looks like this. Right away, you can see that beautiful cutoff line and what appears to be a good width. On low beam, it didn't do so good in the distance score. It was actually a 0.9. That just means the low beam wasn't quite as effective as we truly wanted. On high beam, it scored a 3.6, so a lot better. The width score was a 2.8 using our mathematical equation. To spit out your overall rating, the GTR Lighting, as far as light output goes, is a 2.6. We then installed the Alpharex Luxx series headlight, and this is what the low beam light output looks like. As you can see, a very nice cutoff line. On low beam, we actually got a distance score of 1.1. On high beam, we got a more intense score of 3.9, and when you include the width score of 1.3, the overall rating of this entire headlight assembly was a 2.1. Not quite as good as the 2.6 from GTR Lighting, but still a pretty decent light output coming from those two LED projectors. The main contributor to the Alpharex Luxx light output being better than the light output of the Alpharex Nova is simply the high beam. Since it's got that dedicated high beam projector, it had a 3.9, which then brought the score up to a 2.1. The next one I installed was the Alpharex Nova series, and this is what low beam looks like. Now remember, this is about $500 more than the Luxx series that you just saw, and this is what the beam pattern looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of foreground light output. It's almost like we had the fog lights here, but I assure you we did not have the fog lights on. This is just what the low beam looks like out of the 4 ice cube projectors on the Alpharex Nova headlight. The problem with so much brightness down there is it doesn't really give you any love to the low beam or the high beam. The low beam score was a 1.7, the high beam was also a 1.7, and the width not too bad at a 1.1. So the overall rating of this was a 1.6. Oddly enough, as far as usable light output, that's actually less than the Alpharex Luxx series headlight. But I'd still take the Alpharex Nova since it looks a lot better than the Luxx in my opinion. Moving forward, we installed the Attica or Attica headlight, and it looks like this. You do notice a lot of width and a pretty tall beam pattern. It's also got a pretty chunky hotspot in the center that's gonna give you your down the road punch of light. On low beam, there was a distance zone score of 1.4 with the high beam zone score of 2.8. The width score was a 2.1. That was a pretty good width. The overall rating was a 2.3 for the Attica or Attica headlight. Now I've got that first generation Morimoto XB headlight housing for the 5th gen 4Runner installed. And as you can see here, you got your low beam that's bright white with a sharp cutoff line. It's got a distance zone score on low beam of 3.0, which is pretty intense. High beam was a 4.0, and looking at the width, you can see it's actually pretty decent. It has an overall width score of a 3.1, and the overall rating comes to a 3.6. The next headlight I got installed is the Morimoto XB Evo hybrid version. On low beam, we got that distance score of 6.6. That's really good, and as you can see, that cutoff line looks a lot different than what you've seen on the other versions of the headlights. Morimoto really spent a lot of time on the cutoff shield to make sure that this gives you everything you need in a light output. On high beam, there was a distance zone score of 7.7, and the width, obviously that is a pretty intense width. The width scored a 5.7, so an overall score rating was a 6.7 from the hybrid headlight. Now the cool part with these headlights is that you could replace the driver. It will no longer be DOT compliant, but if you replace the driver with this supercharger driver, you can get a little bit more light output, usually around 30%. After testing the low beam, we got an 8.3, and on high beam, a 10.4 with a width score of 6.7. That brings the overall rating up to 8.8. Now when you install the Morimoto XB Evo headlight, it looks like this on low beam. And yes, you probably noticed this low beam looks exactly like the hybrid version. It's essentially the exact same, even on the score of a 6.6. However, high beam, because it's got that inner projector, that D projector, it does produce a better beam pattern, a better brightness, and a better overall score of 8.6. The width score was a 5.8. So the overall score was 7.4. Again though, on the backside of this XB Evo headlight housing, if you were to remove the original driver and purchase the supercharger driver, slap that on the back of the headlight housing, you would get a low beam score of 7.8, a high beam score of 10.9, and a width score of 6.7. So your overall rating is a 9.2. So what would you install on your 4Runner when it comes to the lighting? I want to let you guys know that we are owned by the same organization that owns Morimoto Lighting. But I wanted to be as unbiased as possible and just spit facts at you. I want you guys to make an informed decision on buying a headlight upgrade so you don't just waste your money. As far as brightness goes, it's pretty obvious which one you would install. It's a 9.2, the Morimoto XB headlight housing with the supercharger on the backside. And that just gives you the most usable light output on low beam, high beam to give you a good combined score. The next best headlight was literally the OEM LED. So at that point, you might as well not even upgrade your headlights at all. If you solely base your decision completely off of price, well, it depends. Are you balling on a budget or are you big balling? If you're balling on a budget, I would recommend installing the GTR Lighting Carbide headlights. The GTR Lighting Carbide headlights came in at around $800. It's a very budget-friendly headlight to install, but not to mention it's still got that bright white LED projector light output, and it looks pretty badass. Now, I install lights every day. It's my full-time job. So if I was gonna install something, I need it to have a good warranty. So if you're gonna base this entire shootout off of warranty on your choice of which headlight you want for your 4Runner, then obviously a Morimoto product. Even the Generation 1 had a 5-year warranty. Second place would be the Alpharex headlights. Both of them had a 2-year warranty, and the GTR Lighting Carbide series headlight also had a 2-year warranty. Now, as far as features go, it's really up to you. Features is just like the coolness rating. How cool or how great do you think they look? Our videographer loves the Attica headlight. It's that spider-like headlight, and it's got that very chunky textured DRL. I'm gonna say the Attica takes the cake as far as style points go, but features, let's be honest, if it was going to be a headlight housing you would want to install, you want it to have really good features like the Morimoto XB, simply because it's got that supercharger to really drive those low beam and high beam light outputs, and it also has that heating element, so you're not going to have any icing if you live somewhere cold. It also has that key on the back side that you can switch that white and amber daytime running light, and you can also change the way that the turn signal works, sequential or that standard fade-off effect. If I was to go with a different headlight than the Morimoto XB, based solely off of the features, then I'd probably go with the Alpharex Nova Series headlight. The Nova Series headlight has those 4 projectors. I think it looks really cool. You can still choose on the backside between a daytime running light in amber or in white, and it's got a startup sequence that I pretty much love. It is our mission at Headlight Revolution to find the best in aftermarket lighting, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Go to headlightrevolution.com, type in your year, make, and model of your 4Runner to see everything else that we have actually tested and installed.